Welcome back to the Garden Hutch. Today we'll discuss week 28 of 2022. Let's get going. Well, much like every other week here lately, week 28 was hot and dry. We are now in a moderate drought. We are being requested to sort of moderate our water usage. There's nothing mandated yet, it's just a request that's put out. So, what we've done is we've sort of moved off of some of our peripheral flower beds and we've sort of let nature kind of take care of those. The ones we're not watering, they're dying off. Most of the grass is dead. So, I'm not having to water or not having to mow, I guess. So, that's a good thing. Um, One of the things, and I know I say this every week, but I just want to throw it out once more. Please take care of yourself while you're taking care of your garden. I try to get out before the sun comes up to get most of the labor intensive and watering stuff done. If you can water before the sun comes up, that's going to help you out tremendously. Obviously, we did a video, I'll put it up here. There's some simple things you can do: prune, mulch, fertilize, allow your plants to get canopies, that sort of stuff. But the video kind of walks you through ways to help get through this heat. Having said all of that, the next week looks even worse. I think the highs next week are going to be between 104 and 106, with the feels like weatherman said this morning it could feel this upcoming week like 120 a couple of times. So we're not looking forward to that. But that's okay. We're going to be diligent. We're going to, conserve water where we can, and we're going to try to get through this. So the next thing I would like to do is show you a few of the pickings from this week. So for week 28, we wanted to go ahead and just show one of the days for what came out of the garden today. So we're still getting a lot of the pickling cucumbers. Again, we're putting up a couple to 3 jars every couple days. Slicing cucumbers are starting to become a lot more plentiful, so it's time to start sharing. Romas, we have a whole round of Romas coming off right now. So over the next week and a half, we'll be putting a lot of those up while the other one sets. And then our Beefmasters, they've slowed down. We finally got, this is probably the last one we'll get, I'd say, for 2 to 3 weeks. We have another round coming, but they're not quite there yet. During this heat and everything, it does take its toll. It takes a little longer for them to get to size, that sort of stuff. But I don't know if you can tell how much this is, but this is a basket of cherry tomatoes. This is about standard. We get a whole basket of cherry tomatoes every 2 days or so. They're delicious. We are roasting them, like I said. That's how we can, or I say can, that's how we preserve all of our large tomatoes. We did the Romas specifically this year to do that with. So we roast them with onions and garlic. Sometimes we'll use peppers. This time we're just doing them with some basil, so we have sort of a base Italian sauce. But anyway, usually the cherry tomatoes up here, we grew them as a snack to go with our salads and such. But the truth is, we're freezing as many of those as we do anything else because they just seem to go really good in pasta. We roast them, we put them in pasta fresh, so we're hoping to try that. We also got a recommendation from one of our viewers, and I'm going to try that and see how it works. But they recommended that we take and dehydrate the tomatoes and store them with olive oil and then use those in pastas or pizzas and that sort of thing. So I believe we're going to try that at the end of the year, probably the last couple batches, and we'll keep you up to date with how that tastes. We are also incredibly excited because this is the first day that we were able to pick purple hulls. So while it's not a whole bunch of them, it is enough for to make a side of purple hulls. So I've got some neck bones I've been saving just for this. This week I thought we would throw in an end of the week pick as well. So right now, really what we're getting a lot of is our tomatoes. We probably have another week of our Romas, but we're getting, about that many. We've gotten that many, I don't know, we pick about every 3 days. And we've gotten at least that many like the last 3 or 4 times. Our cherry tomatoes are doing really well in the heat. They really enjoy it. Again, what it comes down to is making sure they get the water before the sun comes up. That's helping out a lot. So we have a lot more peppers than this. What we've been trying to do is we've been trying to just pick enough peppers when we're doing this part of it to go when we roast them. That way we don't have to process too many vegetables all at one time. So once we get these in the oven and roasting or whatever, these tomatoes, then we'll pick the rest of them and pickle them or freeze them or whatever we choose to do with them. Also, these are absolutely delicious this time of year. These are our purple whole peas. I'm not quite finished with the 5-gallon bucket that we picked, but I wanted to kind of show how many of these we're getting. We'll take these and I'll make a pot of these with some neck bones for lunch, and then other than that, we'll take them and we will put them into individual servings and we'll freeze them for the fall. So as of right now, even with the drought and the stupid heat that we're all going through, we're still able to put up a substantial amount of food every week. I wanted to kind of throw this out here. Our compost bin has turned into the chickens' favorite place to hang out here during this hot weather. So it's right here along the fence line, and the sun rarely reaches over to this side of it. So our chickens have kind of taken to hanging out over here in the compost pile, and I've stopped flipping my compost for now because I can't really water it, so because of the water restrictions and stuff. So what we've been doing is just throwing our normal stuff we would compost down here in the bottom, and the chickens will eat it. The reason we're doing that, usually our yard provides a lot of the food for our chickens, between the bugs and the different seeds and stuff from the plants, but everything's dying right now. So we're not mowing around the gardens where we water, so the chickens do have that to forage through, but it's just not enough. So they are eating a whole lot more food than they normally would this time of year. So we're also giving them those scraps from the food that we eat so that they have that to sort of balance out their diet. Again, we just make sure that all of the water bowls, all of their water dishes are full, and we also make sure that their food is full all the time as well, so that they can, if they need the food, they can get it out of there, but we prefer them to forage for most of it. So just wanted to do real fast updates going through these gardens. We are getting quite a bit of food, as you've seen earlier in the videos, but it is a struggle because everything is dying. What happens is all of the bugs and things that usually live in the yard, those things have sort of migrated over to our garden. So we're fighting grasshoppers and all kinds of infestations, squash bugs, that sort of stuff. But we're getting a lot of cucumbers daily. I guess actually we pick every other day. So Leslie's putting up pickles every other day. That's fantastic. We're also able to keep our cucumbers and tomato salad in the refrigerator. Anybody who watches the channel knows they are my absolute favorite. So I can't complain too much about that. We've lost one of our butternut squash. We're not getting a whole lot of new female flowers because of the weather. We're getting them periodically here and there. The temperature will drop a little low. When I say a little low, I mean under 80 in the evenings every once in a while, and you'll see a male flower, or I'm sorry, a female flower, but usually we're not getting much. So our cucumbers have started to sort of encroach on here, and I'm just going to let that go. I'm not sure this is the year for growing winter squashes successfully, but if we do have a change in the weather, I do have seeds and we can just put them in there and try again towards the end of the year. So we'll have to wait and see how that works out. Our potatoes here, they're coming along really nicely. So we've discussed this, and what we might end up doing is, if we get a substantial amount of potatoes out of these buckets, we'll probably, we can get these buckets for free from a friend. So we might just do all of our potatoes in buckets, and then build an extra raised bed in the top garden for our carrots, and because we really enjoyed the carrots and so did family. So having more would be fun. So all of this is doing well. We're getting tomatoes. It's kind of worked out like we talked about earlier in the year. This time of year, these tomatoes are just now starting to put off, whereas our other Romas are almost done, and we'll take a look at those here in a bit. But these guys are just fixing to start putting off prolifically, so that works out really well, putting them in the shade. It has made their season, it made their blooms, push back a little bit, but it also staggered them so that we'll have tomatoes, we won't have as much of a downtime while we're going between the two batches of Roma tomatoes. And then you can see the sweet potatoes down there, they're taking off massively. So next year we'll probably grow a lot more of the sweet potatoes. We're anticipating that. You can see here I've been fighting off grasshoppers. We also have had all kinds of squash bugs all through this whole thing. It has been a battle, but almost every day I go through and have to trim off, you know, like a 5-gallon bucket of leaves from between our cucumbers and our winter squashes. And then down there you can see we're getting a lot of eggplant coming on, so we're pretty excited about that. We enjoy eggplant. I did want to come down here and see, you can see these potatoes down here are doing pretty well. And then for those of you who followed last year, that fig tree got bit the winter before, like 2 winters ago, and it went down to nothing. So it's bouncing back really good. I'm hoping that we have a somewhat mild winter so that we can go back to getting a lot of figs in the summertime. So we'll keep our fingers crossed. Maybe we'll get like the late summer round of figs off of this guy. Another thing, we have taken to only watering our blackberries once a week now, and you can see the leaves are starting to die off on parts of these, and we've stopped watering our ground cherries. We've left them here because we're hoping that they will self-seed for next year. We're going to try that. I've read that they're notorious for doing so, so we just let them kind of sit here, and I'm sure they'll end up drying out. But we only water this area once a week, and that's only to make sure that the roots of our blackberries stay healthy for the upcoming year. We don't want them to dry all the way out and kill them, but we also don't want to waste resources on blackberries that have already put off, and we're not going to get any more out of them this year. So it's a better idea probably to err on the side of conservation at this point, because again, the 2-week forecast, there is absolutely zero rain in the forecast. We do get the typical pop-up shower every once in a while where you'll get a 1/4 inch or something. We haven't gotten any of those, but there's a chance this upcoming week, a couple days, for us to get, just a 1/4 inch here or there during these spring showers. So that's good. But, as you look down here, you can see this grass here is a little greener, but that's because, we water this top garden, and so this down here gets it. We also, once a week when we water the blackberries, we water down here just to try to stave off any fire issues. Because eventually it is going to rain, and when that happens, I don't want all of our stuff to get washed away with the runoff. Whenever it gets dry and hot like that, the ground gets super hard, the water just rushes right off, and it can be devastating. So, but Leslie's wildflowers are still doing pretty good over here. These guys haven't bloomed yet, but I think this is going to be more of a thing for next year. We put in the pollinator bushes here, so these will be here perennially from now on, and so we may not get blooms this year, but we should from now on. Now, we have had quite a few changes here in the top garden. Last week we went over the green beans, and as you can see, that bed is coming along nicely. We did have some grasshoppers in here that ate the tops off of a few of them, so we'll see how that works out. So we are getting purple hull peas. We picked a 5-gallon bucket of purple hull peas. That's we saw that earlier in the pickings video. But that bed down there, we are still letting it sit and making sure that it gets watered all the way through. That's where our new round of Roma tomatoes will go. And then our ground cherries, we are just still getting a massive amount of these guys. They got, I'm not sure what they call it. It looks like a lot like, the leaf spot that you get on your tomatoes. So they're a nightshade family, so it might be the close. But what I do is I'll come out with neem oil and spray these. I've also I've been spraying the plants with the neem oil and that sort of stuff. Right now, it is just an infestation because there's not much for the bugs to eat. So the things we're keeping alive are a magnet for everything. But don't get discouraged, right? Yes, your plants may not look as good right now as they usually do because of the heat and the negative attention they're getting from some of the wildlife. But having anything right now is an accomplishment. Being able to eat any of your own food during this time, you should be proud of yourself if you're able to do it. Also over here, our Roma tomatoes, we mentioned this, they're not much longer. We probably have another 2 weeks or so of our Roma tomatoes. They're still setting smaller tomatoes, and I think this should be the last round. For those of you who have been watching the channel, I've brought it up a few times that Roma tomatoes are indeterminate varieties, or I'm sorry, are a determinate variety. So what that means is they only put off a certain amount, and I believe this last round will be the final one. This is what I was talking about. If you can see this guy, those big old grasshoppers, that's what I've been fighting. Get out of here, buddy. And I'll throw it over the fence over there and our chickens will eat it. So, but these Roma tomatoes are delicious. As we showed earlier, we are getting, you know, 2-3 times a week. We're picking enough to roast and put away a few dozen bags of tomatoes. So our freezer is rapidly filling up. Now our beef masters have slowed down just a little bit. You know, we're having this next round come off, and then we're hoping that whenever this week, I believe there's 2 nights where it'll be under 80 degrees. That's what I'm trying to say. And so we're hoping if that happens that these little blooms up here will set and we'll start getting another round of beef masters. But if not, it's no big deal. I plan on keeping them alive because eventually the weather will turn, and when that happens, I either want our plants that are in the ground to be able to bounce back, or at least have more plants in the greenhouse ready to put in the ground to take advantage of that better weather. So as you can see, we finally got these squash put in the ground. These pole beans over here, they were done. So we went ahead and removed them. And already you can see over here, we have got trauma on 2 of these squash plants already just from being in the ground. And we put these in like 2 days ago. So again, a lot of these things, some of them are going to take, some of them aren't. The weather and the drought and that sort of stuff, it's going to get to some of your plants. The idea that we're trying to exercise this year is to have patience and give the plants a chance to bounce back if you can. And if not, let's just try to plant more and be ready for whenever the weather does turn back into, you know, a gardener's favor, as my grandfather would say. We're going to go ahead and take a look now at the pallet garden here. And one of the things that is really amazing to me in this pallet garden is how well our melons are doing. So far, we haven't gotten any watermelon that have come off yet, but we have several that are ripening on the vine. But our cantaloupes, we're getting 3 to 5 cantaloupe a week. We eat about 2 cantaloupes in a week. We can't eat much more than that. So our neighbors and family members, they're loving having the extras and stuff. So, but let's take a look at how the pallet garden is moving along through the summer. One thing I did want to point out here is you can see through here, all of this area, this grass is growing, and I could go through and I could pull all the weeds out and I could mow it all down. The reason I'm not is the chickens are absolutely loving this little area over here, because with the, you know, with the grass and stuff, there are more bugs and things for them to go through and eat that they have access to. It's also a little bit cooler, and it gives them sort of you know, it gives them a little bit of normality in this abnormal summer. So I just wanted to point that out. As you can see, some of our weeds and things are a little out of control, but that's by design. So our corn is coming along well. Nothing came up in that little top corner though. So I'm gonna put another seed in there this morning and see if we can't get, but if not, whatever. Well, we should still get plenty of corn. So, and then now that everything is kind of up and situated, we're gonna go down and, you know, fill this with straw like we have our other beds. It's worth noting that our local ranch store was out of straw and has been for about 14 days. Those sorts of resources are getting a little more difficult for them to get, you know, because grass isn't growing, so people can't do hay and straw and that sort of thing or whatever. But they do have an order coming in, so I've already got mine reserved. So if you need those types of things, I would recommend if you have a place that you go that you're friendly with, maybe they can get you on a list, the kind of instead of a first come first serve type thing. We are getting peppers, these banana peppers. Again, I've said it before and I'll continue to say it. From now on, these will be a permanent addition to our gardens. More than likely, we will probably even go through and put them in a bigger bed next year, because a lot of our family loves them. We also have started to pickle some of them. I know I've mentioned that. I'm not sure if those are gonna be good or not, if I'm being completely honest. So we're gonna wait and see if the pickled peppers are any good. And if they are, then we are definitely gonna grow a much bigger bed of these guys. So, and then our cantaloupes and watermelons, they are looking good. I'm not sure. Again, this is only my second year to really grow melon, so I continue to spray them with neem oil and that sort of stuff, and I'm getting this little the brown on the edges. And so what I did was I went through, I thought maybe it was a fertilizer issue, so I put some additional fertilizer in and I sprayed it with the neem oil really well. It still breaks out from time to time. I talked to a fella down the road, and he said he thinks that's just the grasshoppers and stuff. And I feel terrible for these folks, because his whole garden got eaten up by grasshoppers. So he said whenever the weather breaks, he's going to try to salvage his garden and put something in later. I just hope it breaks soon. But we're still getting kale on the regular. We're also able to eat a salad every afternoon, and we have our Swiss chard is coming along really nicely still. I love this Swiss chard and kale combo. Next year we'll probably take these hot peppers and put them in a separate bed, and then I'll have this whole thing through the summertime of just kale and chard. The reason for that being is now that people have had the opportunity to try the chard and the kale and stuff in salads, we're having a lot of requests for extra. So if we can have this whole bed just full of chard and kale, that would be plenty, I think, for all the requests for salad that we're getting. But you can see these cayennes, peppers love the heat, so they are actually doing really well. They're loving every bit of this. This is our new chard that we just recently put in, and it's coming along well. This one is a little weird. It grows, it's doing well. It's nice. It's got a really good turgor pressure. Doesn't seem to have a whole lot of issues, but for whatever reason, it's growing this way instead of that way, but whatever. The parsley, it got eaten up pretty good by a couple grasshoppers, but went through and kind of trimmed him up a little bit. It was looking a lot like that. Get that fella out of there. So, and then we come to the cherry tomatoes, and as you saw, this is just, we get massive pickings off of this 2 to 3, sometimes 4 times a week right now. So the next step, of course, is you can see again how dense this part right through here is. As soon as these down here, all you can see these, whenever they start finishing up ripening, then I'll go through and I'll air the inside of this out, and then we'll tie this canopy back kind of up towards the middle and allow it to grow a new canopy. The canopy will start cascading just from higher. It'll be the exact same thing, but what it'll do, again, all it does is it allows the plant itself to create a canopy to prevent the bottom of it from drying out too much. Yeah, did you steal that tomato, Red? Chickens love these cherry tomatoes. We get in there every once in a while, there'll be some that are, grasshoppers taking a bite out of or something, and we'll throw them out, and the chickens just love every bit of it. So, and then of course my greenhouse is a little disorganized, so please excuse that, but we have our Roma tomatoes in here, and I went ahead and planted 12 of them. I'll only need 8, but I figure this way I can have extra in case something happens with the weather being as odd as it is, and then if all 8 of them come through, then I can give away the rest of them. But my intentions are taking these guys, putting them in, I would hope, by the 2nd to 3rd week of August, and that'll give my Roma tomatoes, from the 2nd week of August or so all the way through to the last week of September to put off. And a lot of times, for us anyway, our fall tomatoes are a bit more plentiful. They just don't get quite as big, so that it's sort of a trade-off there. One last thing I wanted to discuss this week is make sure if you have birds in your yard, or if you have bees like we do, we have our beehive, try to make sure to leave out some water. What we do is we have a little bird bath. We try to fill it up 2-3 times a day. We also bought like a little $6 fountain thing from Amazon. It just runs off of solar power. All it does is just keep mosquitoes from laying eggs in there. It just makes the water move a little bit. It does drain it a little bit faster, but to keep the mosquitoes out, it's well worth it. Anyway, if you do have birds, or if you have any wildlife, right now is a great time to try to put out a little bit of water for them. At least in our area. Again, I know I said it when we started, but we're in a moderate drought. This isn't something that happens in this part of the country very often. Now, we'll go a couple weeks without rain whenever it's hot, but we're going on, this will be, as far as the projected, right, it'll go out to like 5 weeks, and it's usually not 106 degrees every day either. So all of those things combined have made it really rough, not just on us and on our gardens and things, but on the wildlife and that sort of stuff that lives around us. So if you have the time and the means, you know, just kind of keep the animals and birds and stuff in mind. So I would like to say thank you to all of you that have made it here to the end of the video. I do appreciate it. If you enjoyed this, consider giving it a like. If you have not at this point, please consider subscribing to the channel. It goes a long way in helping us out, and it's free for you. Until next time, I hope that all you folks take care of yourselves. Peace.